Haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Kuf Yud Dalid Amud Aleph. Starting with Daf Kuf Yud Gimel Amud Beis, 7 lines from the bottom. The Gemara brings a halacha, and then Rabbi Yosi Ish Hutzal. Says the Gemara, Omar Rabbi Bar Chan Omar Rabbi Yoshmuel Bar Marto Omar Rav Mishum Rabbi Yosi Ish Hutzal. Minayin she'ein sho'alim b'chaldiim. Where do we know you don't seek out from astrologers information about the future? Shenemar, it says in the pasuk, Tomim tiyeh im Hashem Elokech. You shall be perfect in your faith with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore not seek out the futures by astrology. Uminayin hayodeya b'chaveroi shu gadol mimenu afilu b'davar echod shechayiv linhog boi kavod. Where do we know that if you are aware that somebody is greater than you in one matter, that you are to then give him kavod? Shenemar, it says in the pasuk in regards to Daryavish, who said about Daniel, Kol kovel di ruach yatira bei. He's discovered that the wisdom of Daniel was greater, was more advanced than the other ones. Umalka ashis lakmusei al kol malchuso. And the king thought to establish him to be the one who was going to be on all of his kingship. A third statement that Rabbi Yosi Ish Hutzal teaches us, Vayosheves al dam tohor asura leshamesh. The first 7 days when a woman has a male, a zochar, during those 7 days, when she sees blood, that's considered to be that she's in nida during those 7 days. However, after that, from the 8th day into the 40th day, it's called dam tohar. So although she sees blood, she's technically tahor. When it comes to a girl in nekeva, it's the double amount. The first 14 days, she's in nida. The 15th until the 80th day, it's dam tohar. So therefore, it says over here, even though it's now no longer a concern, meaning to say that she stopped seeing dam altogether. Let's say, in the case of the zochar, we're now on the 40th day, so she stopped seeing blood. Now it's the night subsequently, the following night of the 40th day. So it stays over here that she's still prohibited from doing hashmish hamito, even though she has stopped then seeing blood. The concern is because if she were to see blood, she'll think it's just like dam tohor, where it's permissible, when it's really dam nida. Ask the Gemara, ad kama, how much does she have to desist? Says the Gemara, Amarav oina, 1 night period. That's according to the Rashbam. Tano, it states over here in the following brayso that Yosef Ish Hutzal had many names. Tano, hu Yosef Ish Hutzal, hu Yosef Habavli, hu Isi ben Gur Aryeh, hu Isi ben Yehuda, hu Isi ben Gamliel, hu Isi ben Mahalilel. In other words, all of these names were then had to be changed because of a Zeras Hashmad. Therefore, when they're running away from the Gezerah, they had to then change their names as not to be then found and be put to death. Umashmoy, what was his true name? Says the Gemara, Isi ben Akavia Shmoy. Gemara says, who Rabbi Yitzchak ben Tavlo, another sage who had different names, who Yitzchak ben Tavlo, who Rabbi Yitzchak ben Chaklo, who Rabbi Yitzchak ben Eloihu. The Gemara Daf Kuf Yud Dalem and Aleph at the very top states that when it says Rabbi Yitzchak and doesn't specify Rabbi Yitzchak ben Acha de Shmaitza, it's Rabbi Yitzchak ben Acha in regards to halachic sugyas. Who Rabbi Yitzchak, when it says Rabbi Yitzchak Stam, it's who Rabbi Yitzchak ben Pinchas de Agadita. When it's talking about Agadic places in the Gemara, then that Stam Rabbi Yitzchak is referring to Rabbi Yitzchak ben Pinchas. V'simonach, how do you tell which Rabbi Yitzchak we're referring to? It says in the pasuk that's quoted over here, Shma'uni achai ve'ami. David HaMelech stands on his feet and says, Shma'uni achai ve'ami. And therefore Shma'uni sounds similar to Shmaitza. And achai, my brothers, is similar to Rabbi Yitzchak bar Acha. So therefore that's a way to remember that in regards to halachic sugyas, that Stam Rabbi Yitzchak refers to Rabbi Yitzchak ben Acha. Whereas Mimela, when it talks about Agadatos, it's referring to Rabbi Yitzchak ben Pinchas. Amar Rabbi Barachano Rabbi Yochanan Mishmei Rabbi Yehuda bar Rabbi Eloi. He says the following advice: Echol batzol. He says, eat onion batzal, v'shoiv betzel, and sit in the tzel. V'lo teichel avozim v'tarnegolim, v'hei libcha roidef alecha. He's saying like this. He said, eat things like onion, which is cheap, and then he says, as a result, you'll be able to then sit comfortably in the shade of your house. And don't eat expensive foods like birds, like chickens and geese, and therefore your heart will have to then go after to support such habits. And therefore, pachos memichlach memishtich, when you are going to then have less of a requirement of the expenses when it comes to food and drink, then toisif al dirascha, you'll then be able to then add to your heart, to your house. Kiyasa Ula Omar, when Ula came, he says something is similar. Mitla matlim b'marov, they said the following moshel, the following statement in the west, referring to Eretz Yisrael, where he came from. He's now speaking to the people in Bavel. Da'ochil alito tifshei ba'aliyasa. When one who eats the fat, referring to the fat tail of the sheep, really is referring to meat, fatty meat, then he's going to have to hide in his aliyah, in his attic, from his creditors. Da'ochil kakule, if he's going to eat vegetables, which is not expensive, then akilkele temat shochiv, he'll be able to then lay down openly on the trash heaps, meaning to say, even in front of everybody in the populace, he won't have to hide from anybody. The Gemara now brings the next Mishnah. The Mishnah is talking about Leil HaSeder. Mazgoi loikos rishon. They pour, literally, mazgo means diluting, because in the times of Chazal, the wine was very, very strong. They had to dilute it with water, 3 parts water, 1 part wine. And it refers to us nowadays as just pouring the first kois of Kiddush, the first of the Dali koisos. And here it says mazgo lois, mashma, that the balabai should not pour himself, but rather others should pour for him. And the minhag is that everybody also who's there at the Seder has somebody else pour the first and all Dali koisos for him. Says over here, regards the first kois, Beishamai oimrim mivarech al hayoim, ve'achar kach mivarech al hayayin. Rabbi Beishamai says that the order is that you first make a bracha on the yoim, mekadesh Yisrael vehazmanim, and then you make the bracha of borei pri agafen. Whereas Beis Hillel says the opposite order. You first make a bracha borei pri agafen, and then you make a bracha to mekadesh the yoim. The Gemara will explain the svaras for both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. The Gemara now brings the brayse Tanu Rabbanon devarim shebein Beis Shammai Beis Hillel b'seuda. In fact, there are many machlekes in between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel in regards to seuda, as it's stated in Maseches Brachos. But over here, the Gemara brings one. Beis Shammai oimim mevarech ala yoim ve'achar kach mevarech ala yayin. He says you first make a bracha on the day, and then the bracha on the yayin, borei pri agafen. Mibnei, why? Shehayoim gorem leyayin sheyavoy. Because Beis Shammai says it's the day that causes the wine. In other words, you're only making kiddush because of the day. So therefore, since the day is the causation, therefore one should make a bracha on the day and then the bracha on the yayin. Ukvar kiddush hayom v'adayin yayin loy bo. And Beis Shammai says the second reason why you should first make a kiddush, you should make mekadesh on the yoim and then a kiddush on the and then the borei pri agafen, because the day first comes in. In other words, one is in chronological order is first now taking on the kedushas hayoim, whereby that would mechayiv the bracha on the kedushas hayom, mekadesh hayoim, and then the bracha of yayin. Beis Hillel argues, mevarech al hayayin ve'achar kach mevarech al hayoim. you first make a bracha b'rei Pri HaGofen, and then you make a bracha on the day. Why? He says, he says that the yayin is the causation of the day. It's kiddush. In other words, if you don't have yayin or you don't have pas, in this case matzah, then you will not make kiddush. So therefore it's the yayin or the pas that you would make the bracha first on, and then only afterwards make mekadesh hayoim. And davar acher, the Brisa goes on to say, another reason for why Beis Hillel says you first make a bracha on the gofen and then on the birkas of kiddush hayoim, because birkas hayayin tedira u birkas hayom eina tedira. The bracha on the yayin is tadir. In other words, you're making kiddush tadir, because every time you're making kiddush, or you're making on a kois havdalah, or birkas hamazon, all of these things require kiddush on the kois b'rei Pri HaGofen. And therefore it's more tadir than the Kiddush Hayoim, which is only Friday night for Kiddush Shabbos or Leil Yom Tif. And therefore we have a principle, tadir v'she'eno tadir, tadir koidim. When that which is considered to be more common, that takes precedence, and therefore you should make the bracha b'rei Pri HaGofen before you make the bracha of Mikadesh on the Kiddush Hayoim. And the Brisa concludes, v'halacha the Beis Hillel. And the halacha is like the words of Beis Hillel. Ask the Gemara on this Brisa, my davar acher. Why did it state davar acher? The Chitema, Gemara explains, if you'll say Hasam over there regards to Beis Shammai, when he says you first make Kiddush Hayom and then B'rei Pri HaGofen, Tarti, V'hocha chada. He says two reasons, and I only said one. So Hachanami Tartin, I'll say that I also have a second reason to support why you make B'rei Pri HaGofen first. Tadir v'sheino tadir, tadir koidem. The Gemara says, "V'halachi the Beis Hillel." That which it says in the Brisa, the halacha is like Beis Hillel. Frek the Gemara pshita. That's straightforward. We know the halacha is like Beis Hillel. The nafik baskel. There was 3 years of machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel that's recorded in Masechet Eruvin, and the conclusion is from a baskel that came out and announced the halacha is like Beis Hillel. So we know that that's so. Why do we have to say specifically in this Brisa that the halacha is like Beis Hillel? Gemara says, one answer would be because this halacha was stated before the baskol was announced. Or if you want to say, even this came after baskol. If that's so, then why is it necessary to specify over here the halacha is like Beis Hillel? Since Rabbi Yoshua is of the Shita, lo bashamayim hi, and therefore we're not mashkichin to the baskol, you can follow either Beis Hillel or Beis Shammai. Over here, Rabbi Yoshua agrees that the halacha is like Beis Hillel.